Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Soda Citizen podcast. Today, we are with Kristian Niemi, who owns several restaurants around town, and I'm really excited to have him today so we can get his 2 cents on the food scene in Columbia. So welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being
you.
here. So I guess the first question is owning restaurants in Columbia. Why? Why did you pick this place?
Wow. Well, I ended up here. My ex-wife came here to go to graduate school.
Okay.
And I had just gotten done with architecture school and culinary school right around the same time.
Okay.
And we got down here, and it was right around it was 93, so there was a part of a recession. So there really wasn't a lot of hiring going on in the architectural field, and I really wasn't that jazzed about it.
Okay.
Anyway, so I stayed throughout my entire college career, I was in the restaurant business as a waiter. And so I thought, well, I'll just do that for a while until I figure out what I want to do.
Sure.
And very quickly, working at Garibaldi's, I got a phone call to ask if I wanted to manage a restaurant. And then before I knew it, I was managing Longhorn. And then Bill Dukes, who owned the Longhorn at the time, asked if I'd be the opening general manager for Blue Marlin. And so I opened Blue Marlin, and shortly after that, maybe 6 months after we opened that, we left. Myself, Harold Ham, and John Campagna all left Blue Marlin and opened up Mr. Friendly's in March of 95.
Great.
And so it began.
Yeah. Right? So for people that are listening that don't know much about your restaurants, why don't you give us a little Cliff Notes version on each one and what they specialize in?
Well, right now, the only restaurants that I've got, of all the ones that I've opened, are Bourbon over on Main Street.
It's one of my personal favorites.
Thank you. So Bourbon is a whiskey bar with a Cajun-Creole menu. We boast a whiskey list of close to 500 whiskeys, and we do our own kind of locally sourced spin on Cajun-Creole cuisine.
Have you tasted all of the whiskeys personally?
Most of them.
Most of them?
Yeah, most of them. I'll admit there are some on there that I don't approve of,
okay.
but are fan favorites. So we put them on the menu, and there are others I feel are they have a cachet about them that makes people want them, even though they're not necessarily. It's like fine wine.
Sure,
it's
right.
it's like the $150 bottles of Cabernet. It's
right.
Is it really worth
right.
$150 bottles? Are you going to enjoy it that much more? But
to say that you bought it.
Yeah, exactly. So we have those. So that's Bourbon. Black Rooster, where we're sitting now, is a Frenchish restaurant. And by Frenchish, we kind of the point behind Black Rooster was to do a French bistro-style, brasserie-style restaurant. Do some of the classics like steak frite and French onion soup,
which is also very delicious.
Things like that, but then also kind of veer off and touch on the countries where France had an influence on the cuisine of that country. So anywhere from Vietnam to Senegal to even Mexico, where the French had a presence and imbued the food there with some of their influences. So you'll find on our menu kind of this somewhat mix of very traditional French, along with twisted French, along with cuisines from other countries that have French influence.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very smart menu. I know personally, sometimes I get intimidated going into a very French restaurant because you're like, oh, it's going to be real heavy French, Right. But I really appreciate the menu here because it is kind of a playful French restaurant. It's not a serious French restaurant.
Exactly, yeah. We're serious about what we do, but we're very playful about how we do it.
Yes,
and that was kind of the key that the chefs here, understand fully well. Because our head chef now, Alex Strickland, he's he was at Momofuku in New York, and so he comes back with a lot of Asian-influenced ideas that have been a lot of fun. So we do a ramen night now, which isn't very French.
Right.
But ramen is similar to pho in Vietnam, and so we kind of run with it. So every Tuesday night we have a ramen night, and every week it's slightly different. So
keeps things fresh. So I'm just curious, since you have, one restaurant downtown Columbia and then this one in West Columbia, kind of talk us through, pros pros, maybe not so many cons, but just what's it like owning a restaurant in two different parts of the city?
Well, one of the nice things I love about being in West Columbia, right on the river, is the view. Like, we have a spectacular view here. We've got the big garage door that we can open when the weather is temperate, which is very few times per year.
Yes.
But when we can, it's beautiful. We've got the rooftop, which overlooks the river and the city.
Which was a smart move, I feel like.
And the sunset at, when the sun sets and it shines off of all those buildings downtown, it's just absolutely stunning. Bourbon. What I love about Bourbon is the building that it's in.
Yeah.
There are very few buildings left like that on Main Street. So it was built in 1869, and the reason it became Bourbon literally is because of the way the building looked. Like,
really?
I had no intention whatsoever of opening a whiskey bar, Cajun-Creole restaurant at all. I got asked to look at the building. The vibe from it just kept screaming like New Orleans with that cast iron facade. And so being on Main Street now, we opened in 2014. Main Street has come such a long way from what it was. And when I opened Mr. Friendly's in 1995 and was asked shortly after we opened that if I'd come and look at a space on Main Street, I remember telling the guy, I was like, even if you paid me
I'm not
to
doing
put
it.
a restaurant in here and then paid me every month to be there, I still wouldn't do it.
Right.
Because at that time in 95, it just wasn't quite ready. But now it's just so vibrant. To be right across the street from, when we opened, we were across the street from Oak Table. They opened up. And to be across the street from the state capitol, be next door to the Wig.
Yeah.
Cantina 76, right, down the street. Now Halls is across from us. They're a fantastic neighbor. It's just such a vibrant area. And with the addition of all the new hotels in the Vista and downtown area, we see such a huge, a large part of our crowd is people from out of town that either come to town to do business with either the university, capital, or the military, or they're in town just to see Columbia.
Right. Now, Bourbon is the first restaurant I've ever gone to where on the menu you can buy a 6-pack for the kitchen.
Yeah, we stole that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. We stole that from, we saw it on a menu. I don't remember where I was when I saw that on the menu, but I thought that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. Oh, I thought maybe that was an original. Sorry. I was going to be like, kudos to you.
I wish I'd thought of that, but
I wish more places would do it because they work so hard, and sometimes a 6-pack could really help when you're closing up.
Exactly. A cold 6-pack at the end of the shift, I can attest to the value of it.
Well, and it's
the
nice to hear the little
restorative
bell
powers.
Ring. Right. So, of course, the elephant in the room that I'm sure everybody wants to know is, we've just a year through this whole COVID season. What are some things that you have learned? How are some things, what have you done to adapt? And what do you think you did that best position you so that you've come out on this side still owning 2 restaurants?
Well, managing it has been the biggest thing, and managing it properly. And that was the hardest part. However, we benefited from about a year and a half ago, or maybe it was a year prior to the pandemic. I went and spent some time in Taiwan and Vietnam. I did a little bit of consulting work over there and then just, visited and traveled around. So my friends from over in Taiwan, in Taipei, were immediately emailing and texting me saying, this is serious. And this is at the end of December, beginning of January.
Gotcha.
This will shut you down. Start preparing. So my partner Eric and I started to prepare by just being more financially, fiscally responsible.
Right.
Getting just downright miserly about certain things and just stockpiling cash as much as we could to kind of weather the storm. We had no idea we would have to weather it as long as we did. So thankfully, the unemployment benefits that they offered to our staff kept them home, kept them safe, and kept them paid. We were able to get in on the first round of the second round of the PPP.
Yep. And
we've just had to manage it in creative ways that I think, not to say it in the cliche way that it was said before when everybody was like, we'll come out of this stronger, but now that we're towards the end of it, we see a light at the end of the tunnel. We are actually coming out of it stronger because we did a lot of different things during it to make ourselves
Right.
stronger and ensure longevity.
Right. Well,
So,
congratulations. Good
Thank
job.
you.
I know
if
it
I
wasn't
learned
easy.
anything, if I learned anything, I learned that a pandemic sucks.
Oh, right. Yes. Touche.
Yeah.
Yes.
And while I didn't, and I'll say this, like while I didn't agree with the timing of our state government's lifting of mask mandates or lifting of social distancing and all that, while I didn't agree with the timing of it, I feel that what they did really kind of kept a lot of places open and alive, whereas a lot of other states
Right.
whose numbers were just as bad or even worse closed a lot of places by their
true.
policies.
Yeah.
And so while I'm not a huge rah, government master, I really got to pat them on the back for allowing us to choose our own path, really.
Right.
So although we could have gone to 100% early on when he said it was so, we chose to stay at 50% and then slowly just work our way up to about, right now we're at about 70%. And I'll be honest, on weekends, if we're on a large wait and people are getting antsy about getting seated, if they feel comfortable with it, we've gone as high as 90% capacity, but we try to stay around 60, 70% during the week.
Yeah. Well, so I'm always curious too, because I'm from Columbia, born and raised, and I feel like Columbia
You might be the only one.
Oh, well, like a little unicorn. I just feel like when we're talking about a vibrant food scene, everybody immediately goes to Charleston. And then next is like, when I'm talking about South Carolina, it's like Charleston, Greenville. And I feel like Columbia doesn't get the props that it deserves.
There's a reason, though.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a reason. I mean, let's face it. We move at a snail's pace in comparison
okay. Well, that's true.
for when it comes to that. We have a lot of great restaurants, but we are missing huge segments in our restaurant variety here that other cities have. And
Like what? I'm curious what you think.
Well, I just feel that you aren't seeing as many. I mean, when you count on your, when you count out the restaurants that, like, when friends come to town, like that, what you're going to hit. And then you compare it to like, okay, we're going to take you down to Charleston now.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, like now we're going to have to limit the number that we go to. And I would say Greenville gets they get a lot of press, but I don't believe that their restaurant scene is really any more that vibrant than it is here.
Okay.
No, I think they just do better PR.
Oh, gotcha.
As far as that goes. So, I mean, but I do feel like there's still a lot of segments in Columbia that we are, like, think about it. Go to the Vista. Where are you going to go for breakfast? Like a good local breakfast.
Yep.
Where?
Well, I was immediately thinking about crossing the river and going to like Cafe Strudel or going back down to 5 Points and going to the gourmet shop.
Right. So, but
Starbucks.
I mean, but like a breakfast place in
Sure.
in
There's
the
the
Vista.
IHOP, I guess. You got the IHOP.
But I mean local.
Right. Well, Small Sugar. But I don't know if she's open on the weekends.
I'm not positive. But I'm thinking more traditional
Traditional,
breakfast. Yeah. I mean, like you can't beat Small Sugar when it comes to Charlie's pastries and some of the dishes they do there. So
but it's not a traditional breakfast. I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but then there's a lot of like what I would call like the old term we used to use was ethnic restaurants. There's still a lack of a lot of those in the casual dining scene. Like it's they're either little hole in the wall places that aren't near downtown, or like 929 Kitchen was a good example of one that filled a niche there.
Correct,
and Cow, the Thai place across from, they're filling those niches. But then there's still a lot that could be done here. Yeah.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, and we're just coming off a pandemic, so
But
you probably haven't had time to think about this. Oh, well, maybe you do.
Maybe I do.
Maybe that's how you've made it through the pandemic.
Exactly.
But do you have any future hopes or aspirations of opening more restaurants in our
Oh yeah,
our market?
definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
So you have more to show us.
Yeah. So right now we're in the process of expanding Bourbon. So that's kind of what's on the plate right now.
Making it bigger or having another one? Oh, okay.
Making it larger. So Terry at Blue Flower decided to pull out of her space and just focus on her Irmo store and online presence. And that opened up the opportunity for us to move into the space next door to Bourbon also. So we're still in the same building. We're just occupying both of the bottom floor spaces now. The Bourbon side that exists now will continue to be cocktails and full dinner. The new side will be more of a cocktails and light bites.
Oh,
and then we have the entire courtyard that we'll utilize for all sorts of different things.
Okay, great. So we always ask every guest on our show, Colombia, like in the next 5 years, where do you see it going? Where do you see it improving? It doesn't have to be limited to the food scene. Like, what's something, or your hope for Colombia in the next 5 years?
Well, my hopes for Colombia in the next 5 years would be, I would love to see the North Main Street district continue to grow. I'd love to see Bull Street get developed more. An REI and a Starbucks is a good start. If we start to get some housing in there and some more places. It was unfortunate that Bone and Barbecue wasn't able to hold out long enough, but they were pioneering, and it's when you pioneer like that in a place like in a neighborhood like that, you're taking a big risk.
That's true.
But in that whole area, you've got the Warmouth. Ahmad across the street's got his place, and it's been doing very well. And it would be nice to see that corridor continue to benefit from that kind of growth. I see West Columbia and Casey continuing to grow. Casey has done a beautiful job on their beautification over there. I think they don't have as much of a business district as I believe West Columbia may have. So hopefully that we'll see some more things happening over here in West Columbia. But there's still a lot of space. There's a lot of spaces available in the Vista. That
a lot of potential there.
So if Columbia could figure out how to become more attractive to businesses to move to, I think we'd see a big boom. But right now, I think people are much more likely to go to Greenville or Charleston, and that's unfortunate.
Right. Well, hopefully our listeners in high places can make some things happen to make it more attractive.
It was fun. It's funny that I've always said, that I always felt like Columbia was one of those cities that got held down by capital city syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like we're a city full of ex-politicians, wannabe politicians. And things seem to grind to a halt a lot of times because nobody wants anyone else to take credit for anything. So so let's hope that we can get over that.
Get our act together.
Yeah.
Okay.
And think about it. I mean, when I first moved here in '93, you could name the great restaurants on one hand. And now,
you need two hands.
You need two. You need at least two hands.
Yeah.
So we're moving in the right direction.
I'm very encouraged by the restaurant scene in Columbia. Like I said, I'm from here, and really, if you wanted, when I was growing up, when we'd have a ballet recital or whatever, you went to Garibaldi's. That was really the only place to go, or Diane's. But I don't know, it seemed a little stuffy for kids in Diane's, but we would go to Garibaldi's, and that was really our only option. So I've been very encouraged by the food scene, and just very grateful for you investing in the food scene and continuing to make it better. Good job.
Thanks.
Well, that's it. Unless there's anything else you want our viewers to know about you or your restaurants.
No.
Except come eat in them.
Yeah, come eat in them. We're open right now. We're only open 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday. We haven't been doing Saturday and Sunday brunches like we used to do. We're just kind of waiting until everything is back to 100%. So at that point, then we'll reassess and we'll probably start adding those.
But both restaurants have websites, right? So
if
people
both
wanted
BourbonColumbia.com and BlackRoosterSC.com.
Yeah.
So,
and
so then the events that we do through FGT Productions, like the Harvest Dinners, the Main Street Dinner, the Rosé Festival, the Great American Whiskey Fair, all that stuff. Those, tickets for those are selling really well.
Great. Yeah.
So a lot of them are sold out already. So
awesome. Yeah, we need more of those kind of events too. I think that that helps.
Yeah,
that helps.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on our
Thank you.
program
Appreciate
today.
it.
And For everybody listening and watching, you can always subscribe and like us and share us, and look forward to the next episode of Soda Citizen Podcast.